Thanks for stopping by. I'll be colouring this beautiful moth illustration by Johanna Basford in her book Worlds of Wonder or Mimose. Hi, it's Liv, colouring with Liv. So what makes this page special is that it was actually a buddy colour. It was my first buddy colour, and that's with my colouring friend Shermein Chia. And I'll leave a link in the description box below with her details. And what Shermein did is she put a pink and yellow background, whereas I did a kind of more green, blue, yellow background. And I stuck with that colour scheme for the moth as well. And what I plan to do is to have like gold corners, and Shermein is also going to try and do some metallic colour for the corners as well. So when we were deciding on what page to colour, first I gave my list of options and then Shermein gave her list of options, and I decided to choose the butterfly. Well, it's actually a moth, but we'll call it a butterfly. And I remember seeing a YouTube tutorial from Elisa at Mimose or Mimosa, as well as Tanya Cesolini, and maybe a little bit of Neko Simi as well. So I'll leave those links in the description box below. And at first I was going to do the whole thing using colouring pencils, but then after I watched Mimosa's video tutorial, I decided, do you know what, I'm going to go and use my watercolour pencils as well. Because recently I had a conversation about how amazing museum Aquarelle pencils are, and I feel like no one really talks about them. So I thought I would show you here on how great they are. So as you can see, the colour is just so beautifully vibrant. It was easier to blend the colour if you just go from one side to another, but because I didn't put any masking fluid on beforehand, I was having trouble colouring around them. But I didn't want to use masking fluid this time because I feel like I've done that quite a few times already, and I just wanted to see how it would turn out without using any masking fluid, because sometimes I find that even though I try to be careful, I do end up either ripping the page a little bit, or that piece of the page becomes a little bit more fragile. And besides, it takes a little bit longer to use the masking fluid. So yeah, so I just kind of went around it, let it dry, and then just with water I went around the stars. And then I also added a little bit more blue to the corners by picking up the paint from the pencil directly, so it gave a sharper finish. And then this masking tape that you see is actually from the scrapbooking section of my local arts and crafts shop, Cultura. So once my watercolour background is dry, I went in with my colouring pencils for the butterfly. So I might go back to the background later, but now let's focus on getting that colour down on the butterfly. So I tried to go in with a white colour just to get some highlights, because I've heard that there's a technique that you can do doing it that way. But I couldn't really see what I was doing with the white, and so I went in with my darkest colour that I chose from my colour combo. I'm using Polychromos by Faber Castell, and the darkest colour is number 247 or 247 in the colour Indathrun Blue. The next colour is 151 or 151 in Helio Blue Reddish. After that I chose 153 or 153 in Cobalt Turquoise. Then we have 156 or 156 in Cobalt Green. And finally we have the yellow, which is a cadmium yellow lemon in 205 or 205. And I used a little bit of white and also the ivory in 103, and maybe a little bit of the light cobalt turquoise in 154. And I didn't actually find it necessary to use the light phthalo green in 162, because once you mix the yellow with those kind of greenish blue colours, it creates green on its own. So after I put all those dark layers and those shadows with my darkest colour down, I went in with my yellow to do those highlights, and I kind of worked my way through the medium colours after that. So at the time of colouring this, I had it in my head that this was a butterfly, and butterflies have a more of a translucent wings, but at the same time I knew in my head that the body of this butterfly looked more like a moth, and it kind of reminded me of the cover to Silence of the Lambs, which was a moth. So but you know, it's just imagination. It's fine. My wings can be translucent. I mean, it wasn't typically meant to be translucent, but it kind of worked out that way because I was using that same colour scheme. So the same colours that I used in the background was brought forward out into the foreground of those wings, which I thought was quite nice. So what I did is I added a little bit of texture by adding some lines that you can see on the wings, and some kind of fur, like little dot strokes on the body to kind of emulate a little bit of a furry body to that moth. And in case you want to use the same colours for the background, I was using the number 240 or 240 in lemon yellow with the Caran Museum Aquarelle, but they should have the same colours in the Neocolors. And the number 214 or 214 in beryl green. Then we have 710 or 710 in phthalocyanin green. And then we have the number 670 or 670 in permanent blue. And then finally the last colour is 149 or 149 in night blue. So I think it's really helpful to actually plan out those colours just a little bit, take that little bit of extra time at the beginning before starting your colouring, because when I've messed up my pages, it's generally because I haven't planned my colours. So by doing that, you avoid that. Yeah. So if you like this colouring, give it a like, a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in part 2 of this video once I've finished this colouring. See ya. Bye.